Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back again with another lesson. I just thought of this after I jumped on one of Sakari's live streams, and we were talking about the two witnesses, and this came to mind this morning of just this narrative that I present that the two witnesses are two actual men, and then they will need to be brought here, and then they will be the fulfillment of Acts 1:11, Revelation 11, and then implementing the plagues in Revelation 16. And so I'll put the links down below of, the stuff that I taught during my weekly prophesying kind of live streams, just for people to reference. But, this, to me, again, so what I did when I had that knowledge, I guess, given to me, revelation given to me on the first day of this year, was then, I put the pieces of Revelation together, hopefully with God's help. And then I looked everywhere else in the Bible, just to see if God is planning to do that, then he would have had to have done that in human history. And then, because God works in very similar ways, throughout generations. And so that's what I did. And so if you look at the beginning of this year, you'll see Revelation put in sequence, and then, supported by other things in the Bible. And then you'll see that I go into other books, in particular prophetic books, looking for that same pattern and that same sequence, and I find it everywhere. And so just know that it's literally in all of them, most of them. And then in the very least it's alluded to. And so I want to give another one that I think is better. I can't remember actually if I did this one already, but I just thought I would go over it again, in Genesis about, God's judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah. And so it's the same pattern. And so this is why I know, and I'm not saying this arrogantly, that what I teach is correct, because it's the same thing, everywhere in the Bible. If it was only one other place, I'd be not really strong evidence, but still pretty good. But this is the very first book in the Bible. And so God has been doing what he's planning to do in the end times, which I believe is going to happen very, very soon, since the beginning. And so this is why, again, I don't say this arrogantly, I know that that's the right sequence. And so the thing that's going to kick that sequence off is Christ appearing in the sky. And so just know that, and so all eyes will see him, even those who pierced him. And then there'll be two men standing there, feet on the ground. And so just like when he was taken away, in Acts 1:11. And so, and those two men are also referenced and alluded to in Genesis 18. And so just know, again, this pattern is the same. So if the Bible's true, that sequence is the way it's going to, quote unquote, go down, literally. And so in Genesis 18, we see that, Abraham is being visited by the Lord and two other men, and there's an interaction. And then, but this is prior to, angels, going to destroy Sodom. And so the modern day parallel is that America is modern day Sodom. And then, these two angels represent the two witnesses. And so, on God, on Jesus Christ, or some people call Yahushua's left and right hand side. And so it's the same thing. It's the same story. And just know that. And so I'll just read Genesis 18, and then we'll talk about the exact parallels that are in the end times. And so in the end times, the sequence that I teach is that Christ appears in the sky, Revelation 1:7, all eyes will see him, even those who pierced him. So the God's elect are on this earth right now. They will see him, and then there'll also be two men standing on this earth. So Christ will return with his two witnesses. And so they will be brought here, and then the 144 will be taken away. So it's kind of like an exchange of spiritual power. And then they will begin a 1,260-day ministry that's written of in Revelation 11, exactly 1,260 days. You set your clock to it. And then during that period of time, they're going to be implementing the plagues in Revelation 16. A lot's going to be happening. It's called the Great Tribulation, according to Jesus, or Yahushua. And so they will be administering the plagues in Revelation 16. The gospel is going to be preached through the flying scrolls, the UFOs. The mark of the beast is going to be implemented. And, all the stuff that's happening in Revelation 11 and Revelation 16 will be fulfilled during that 1,260-day time period, and then they'll be chastised, and that's also relevant to this Genesis passage that I'm going to read. And so the world is going to hate them, and then they're going to work towards killing them. They won't be successful until the end of that 1,260-day period, and then right after that, America's burned. And then Christ reappears with his elect to have this battle of Armageddon, which is a space war. That's why they have all that space war, space defense force or whatever. And so they're preparing, the world leaders are not preparing to fight with each other. Predominantly it's against an invader, which is Christ and his elect. And so just know that that's the sequence that I teach, and that's what's in the Bible, and it's supported here in Genesis 18. And so just know that. And these two witnesses in Revelation 11 are two actual men. And so let's read in Genesis 18. I'll just read in the ESV because it's a little bit easier to read. And the Lord appeared to him, Abraham, by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. So it's the Lord and then 2 others. This is the exact parallel in the end times. Again, nothing's new under the sun. God operates the same way. When Christ returns, when we see him in the sky, there'll be 2 men with him. And he's going to be bringing them here because he always brings his representatives first before he brings destruction. And so he's, quote, dropping them off 1,260 days prior to him destroying America. And so he always sends his prophets. And in this case, it's the same thing in Genesis 18. And in the last days, it's going to be the exact same thing. But he's bringing them, just like he's bringing them here with him. And so at the Transfiguration, you see Moses and Elijah. In Revelation 11, you see Moses and Elijah referenced. And here, it's the same thing, And so whether it's actually Moses and Elijah or representing them, it doesn't matter for the sake of what I'm teaching right now. But he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, "O Lord, I have found favor in your sight. Do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree while I bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves. And after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it and make cakes." And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "She is in the tent." The Lord said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. She was no longer able to have kids. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure?" By Lord, in this case, she's talking about Abraham. The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? Nothing is." God can bring people wherever. Like Sakari was asking me, so are they going to be born? These people can only think from an earthly perspective. God can do whatever he wants. God can turn this table into a person if he wants. He can do whatever he wants. It's not funny. It's just true. It's obvious. And he's been doing this. Who made all this? And so that shouldn't be a big deal for people who truly believe in God. Is anything too hard for the Lord? He's saying it sarcastically. At the appointed time, I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, "I did not laugh, for she was afraid." He said, "No, but you did laugh." Then the men, this is just incredible. This part I sort of don't understand. There's like supernatural things happening, and they still don't believe that entity. This shows that God gives everybody a certain amount of faith. And so God interacted with the world in a different way, and I would say much more frequently in that time. And so in this time, he's interacting with the world largely through deception, and then us having to figure it out with his spirit. But just know that that's a slightly different dynamic, because like they're in the presence of God and they still don't trust what he says. Then the men set out from there and they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to set them on their way. The Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed with him, for I have chosen him." That's very important language. So God, before he goes and does things, he tells the chosen, and the Bible says the chosen people are the elect, 144,000. So he's going to do what he's going to do no matter what, but he lets them know as a courtesy. So this is the parallel. And so when the Bible says that God's elect are sealed, they're sealed with that information that God's about to do something, at about this time next year, God is going to do that. And so this language is coded language. And so I don't think many people will get it, but for those who have an ear, when I was told on the first day of this year that something is going to be born, In this case, he's talking about birth of Sarah having a child. In this case, he's talking about death. We're in the last days, about this time next year. And so he doesn't tell us the exact day. He gives us time periods, and so in this case, he gave Sarah a rough time period, but he's not like 20 years from now, or like it's not vague. He's like about this time next year. We're called and we're told to know roughly the sign of the times, and we're living in the last days. That's a fact, because the whole world is required to sin, and everybody knows it. And so the earth is given to the hands of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. The whole world knows that the leadership is wicked. And so certainly for here in verse 19, for I have chosen him, the chosen know, that this is it. So just know that. For I have chosen him that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has promised. God works with people whose sole objective is to bring what he says here, righteousness and justice. They're not selling masks. They're not rapping. They're not getting money for prostitutes and all this stuff that these demons are doing. Just know that. And so God didn't change his mind here, because he's going to do the same thing that he's doing here soon. And he didn't change his mind who he likes. So just know that. It's not funny, but this is the world we live in is just stupid. Then the Lord said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great and their sin is very grave, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me, and if not, I will know. He's being sarcastic. He knows exactly what he's about to do. This is from an earthly perspective, so we understand that there's a thought process that we can relate to. God has all these things timed to the millisecond, nanosecond, and so just know that. This is why God's humble. He finds a way to relate to us, and he's doing that with that statement. And so, just know that the sins have reached unto heaven. This is, again, completely parallel to the entire Bible and in Revelation. And so once the sins of ancient Sodom, which modern day Sodom is America, have reached unto heaven, then God returns. And then in this case, he's going to do exactly the same thing he did here. He's going to bring two people, and then they're going to have a certain task to do in 1260 days, and then he's going to burn it. Exactly what he did here in Genesis 18. And so just know that. And the beginning of that in the end times will be Christ appearing in the sky. In this case, he visited them directly, Abraham, who was his chosen. And so just know that. In the times that we live in now, God's communicated to his chosen what he's about to do. And if you can understand this, it's roughly a year in advance. And so that's why, again, I believe, or at least I teach strongly on this channel, that Christ's return is on the order of days. It has to be. So the men turned from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham still stood before the Lord. Then Abraham drew near and said, will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you sweep away the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just? And the Lord said, if I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I'll spare the whole place for their sake. So now Abraham is kind of negotiating with God. And this is what we do. This is, again, the chosen negotiate with God. And again, this is only for a certain number of people. We let God know how much more time we will stand in this place. And so we are free to negotiate whatever we want with God. If you want to stay here, you can stay here as long as the government will allow you, or whatever, or God will allow you. And just know that. And so, this is what Abraham's doing, and this is what righteous people do. They interact with God directly, and they negotiate with God, but they appeal to things that are true about him, like that he's a righteous judge. And so just know that. Abraham answered and said, behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord. I am but dust and ashes. So he's very aware of how he's nothing, except whatever God can make him out of those dust and ashes. So he's very, very humble. He walked the walk. He's exactly, this is the exact reason why God visited him first, to let him know what's about to happen. Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking. Will you destroy the whole city for a lack of 5? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. Again, he spoke to him and said, suppose 40 are found there. He answered, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 are found there. He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. He said, behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there. He answered, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak again. But this one, suppose 10 are found there. He said, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. And the Lord went his way when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. And so he's not going to find very many, and I just want people to know, and this is not proclaiming that I'm in that group, but just don't be shocked by this, that God is only dealing with a very, very few people. And in this case, he's not actually able to find 10 people. And so this is representative of the end time salvation, where few people are taken out before the two witnesses begin their 1260-day ministry. And then we're going to see that here. And so this is chapter 19, Genesis 19. God rescues Lot. The two angels came to Sodom in the evening. So now God has brought them here, and then only the two angels go into Sodom. And again, use the modern day comparison, it's America. And so first there's three people, the Lord and then his two witnesses, in this case it's two angels. And then they're discussing with his elect, in this case it's Abraham, telling him what's going on. And then, he goes. Then he sends the two angels to Sodom, which again is America. And so that's the same with the two witnesses. And Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth and said, "My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up early and go on your way." They said, "No, we will spend the night in the town square." But he pressed them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. This is representative of that 1260 days, where these two angels are in the quote house. They're staying there. And then guess what happens when they're here? Here. They're going to get chastised by the people of Sodom. And then the Bible says in Revelation 11 that those two witnesses are going to get chastised by the entire world. And so just know that this is a micro representation of what's going to happen on the macro level in the last days, and I believe very soon. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man surrounded the house, and they called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them." And so this is the same thing that's going to happen when they're here. I want people to know a lot of these Hebrews and stuff that think they're the two witnesses, they're going to be the first people in line to go and attack these people, because they're actors, and so they're on God's left-hand side if they continue that way. And so the whole world's going to turn against them. So if they're going to turn against them, obviously the Christian church is not going to have any idea what's going on. The whole world's going to hate these people. And so in this time, because Sodom was filled with homosexuality, they're going to want to be with these men, and so we don't know. That's why it's not safe. That's why I know we're in the end times, because I don't feel safe here. Certainly these two, the two witnesses won't feel safe here, because they're going to have a tremendous amount of power and people are going to really hate them. This is exactly what the Bible says. And so it makes sense. And so they're not going to be safe here. So God can't have, 10 years of just letting America sort of just wither away slowly and gradually. He has to be quick, but he's fair. He's going to give enough time to get the mixed multitude out, the people who refuse the mark of the beast. And so just know that, but we're not looking at like 100 more years of America, or even 10 more years, nothing like that. Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after them, and said, "I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have two daughters who have not known any men. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof." But they said, "Stand back." And they said, "This fellow came to sojourn, and he has become the judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with him." Then they pressed hard against the man Lot, and drew near to break the door down. But the men reached out of their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great. That's, again, both small and great is language of the end times with the mark of the beast. So that they wore themselves out groping of the door. They had power. They can make people blind. And so this is the same type of power that they're going to have in the last days, except they're going to be administering the plagues in Revelation 16. They're going to have power over the weather, over the sun, over the water, everything, the electricity grid, all that kind of stuff. So just know that it's the exact same thing. Then the men said to Lot, "Have you anyone else there, son-in-laws, sons, daughters, or anyone you have in the city? Bring them out of this place, for we're about to destroy this place, because the outcry against this people has become so great before the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it." Why would God care so much? It's like, whatever. Let's say there's a group of people that are just disgusting. He just would go there. Any other God would just take Lot out. Just like, okay, just advise them to just move to a different place and just leave that place there. God hates this stuff. God hates homosexuality. God hates all this stuff infinitely more than we can, because it's his earth and he's going to cleanse it, and it's just like he did here. This is not our judgment. This is God's judgment. So if God exists, it's going to happen. It's going to happen to America. We have to believe that, and we have to want that, because it's a righteous judgment, even if we're destroyed in it. It doesn't matter. And so just know that should be our mindset. Then the men said to Lot, "Have you anyone else here?" I'll read 13. For we're about to destroy this place because the outcry against his people has become so great before the Lord. And the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So God brought those two people. And so just know that. And they're going to have power and they're going to act in a certain way. They're going to be righteous. Just know that. So Lot went out and said to his sons-in-laws who were to marry his daughters, up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city. But he seemed to his son-in-laws to be jesting. So none of them took him seriously. Let's just, whatever, who cares? No, everything's fine. No big deal. Not a problem. Just know that that's what's happening right now. As morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, up, take your wife and your two daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city. But he lingered. So the men seized him and his wife and his two daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. This is again symbolic. Even people like me who hate this place, there could still be a little ounce of us wanting to be here because it's like still what we're used to. So God takes them away. They're taken. And so this is salvation. This is the quote pre-plague rapture that I talk about, and that's in the Bible, taken away prior to the hour of temptation. And so God doesn't get people's opinion, just takes them because it's his body, it's his soul. Everything is God's. And so just know that this is salvation in the last days for God's people. The Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. So he brought him to a safe place. And as they brought them out, one said, escape for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the hills, lest you be swept away. And the Lord said to him, oh no, my lords, behold, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have shown me great kindness in saving my life. This is salvation. But I cannot escape to the hills, lest the disaster overtakes me and I die. Behold, the city is near enough to flee to, and it is a little one. Let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my life will be saved. He said to him, behold, I grant you this favor also, and I will not overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Escape there quickly, for I can do nothing till you arrive there. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun had risen on the earth when Lot came to Zoar. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven, and he overthrew those cities and all the valley and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew out of the ground. The Bible says in America, it will never be inhabited again. So it's exactly the same judgment that is happening in Sodom that's going to happen here. But Lot's wife behind him looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord, and he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the valley. And he looked, and behold, the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace. So it was that when God destroyed the cities of the valley, God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived. And so just know that, that's the narrative, and again, it's the exact same narrative that is going to happen in the last days. And so it's exactly the same. Christ returns. He's with two witnesses, actual men. He brings them here. They come here, and then people are like, who are you? What are you? What are you doing to us? And like all that kind of stuff, social distance, wear a mask, and they're going to be tormenting the world with the plagues in Revelation 16. They're going to be chastised, and then they're going to want to kill them. And so in this case, in the end times, they're going to be successful, and then they're going to be taken away. And so, just know that. But then right after that, God destroys America, just like he did right here in Sodom. And so that's the narrative. And so just know that there's absolutely nothing new under the sun. This sequence is the exact same pretty much as the one in the end times that I teach, and it's everywhere else in the Bible. And so for people who are interested, do a search on my channel of sequence of the end times. And so if you go to, I'll do that right now, and I'll just look at all the books that I did this through. So this is just the same kind of thing that I've done already in the past. So if you literally just type sequence, I think is probably the best key phrase. And then if you look, because I was told this on the first day of this year, and then that's when I made that video that's an hour and 24 long. Again, 2:4:44. The video's length is 1:2:4:44. So it's only certain people will get it. But that was made on January 6th. And then I started going into all the major and minor prophets: Malachi 3 and 4, Zechariah 10 and 11, Daniel 12, Joel 2 and 3, Zechariah 2 and 6, Wisdom of Solomon, 2nd Ezra, and now Genesis. And so that sequence that I presented on in that video, an explanation of the book of Revelation. Let me get the exact title. Again, I'll put the links of the 3 main videos below. But this longer video, notice how YouTube, the actual video's length is 124:43, but it rounds it off to 44 when you look at it. And then the length of that PowerPoint for those numerology people when I made it was 911 kilobytes. And so I don't take these as coincidences. 911 is a very, very important number. And so just know that. But this book, this video is called An Explanation of the Book of Revelation plus Revealing the Sequence of the End Times. And so it's not that big of a mystery now because that sequence is everywhere. And so the only thing that I'm waiting for at this point, and just killing time until that happens, until God literally kills time, is I'm waiting for Christ to appear, and to bring us 2 witnesses here. That's all I care about. There's nothing to talk about for me personally. That's just what it is. I used to go on debates and do different things and all that. And so I was comforted to know when I talked to Sakari that other people recognize that the 2 witnesses are 2 men, because it has to be. It's definitely not these ex-drug dealers, some of them current drug dealers, rappers, getting prostitutes. It's not none of that. It's disgusting. That's stupid to think that. Why would God use people who are disgusting to go and destroy the people that are also disgusting? And so that God would be stupid. And so these 2 witnesses have to be pure, and they are pure because it's Moses and Elijah. And it's the same narrative that's in Genesis 18 and 19 as in all those other books. And so just know that. And so that's the way it is. And so all I'm looking for personally is Christ's appearance. Because when Christ appears, that is also going to be the time of the 2 witnesses. In that day, 1260 days is going to be great tribulation. The world is going to be tormented by these 2 people, and they're going to hate them because this world hates God. And so they're going to hate the 2 representatives of God, and they're going to work towards killing them, and then they're going to be successful, but only at the end of that 1260 days. And then God's fully done with this place. He's gotten the mixed multitude out from all nations on earth. The rest of the people have the mark of the beast, and then he just starts killing everything, and just exactly the same as this. There's like no life allowed, on that ground that God does that stuff to, without God replenishing it with the kingdom of heaven. So just wanted to put that out there, and this is why it's very, very important to know all aspects of the Bible in order to understand the book of Revelation. Your mind has to be open to the whole thing in order for the book of Revelation to make sense. And, we'll keep our eyes to the sky. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.